Hi everyone, welcome back to another ultimate guide to everything. This time we're having a look at some camera stabilization gear. So the first one, port of call, is our slider here. So a camera slider is basically a small version of a camera track. So it basically allows you to put a camera on the top and move it from one side to another. Relatively straightforward. So the main things to think about here is you've got a tripod plate, you obviously got your actual slider itself, and of course you've got the legs it stands on. First things first, to make sure that your slider is nice and stable on the table, is you can twist and alter the legs to make it nice and stable, so it will keep nice and level. Second thing to make sure, once you've got it nice and level, then obviously test to make sure it works. So as you can see, a nice slide backwards and forwards here. Next up, you actually need to connect the camera to the slider. So on the top here, you've got a plate. So if we just loosen this dial on the side here, once our tripod plate comes off, again, you've got the standard screw mount that's on the bottom of all the cameras. Simply attach it to the bottom of this handy camera that I have here earlier. Attach it on like so. Once it's on there nice and firm, we can reattach it. So then we can reattach our slider on the hair. Make sure to tighten that up nice and tight so it doesn't wobble. And then we have our camera on a slider, like so. And then we can slide our slider backwards and forwards. Now, the cool thing about the particular tripod head we've got here is we've got multiple different dials we can twist to basically change exactly how it works. So we've got one that allows us to do some extra panning, so we can pan at the same time as tilting it round. So you can get some extra kind of tilting as we slide, which, if that's something you want to do, you can absolutely do it. Or you want to maybe focus on something in the middle as you slide past it. So even though you're moving, you're still focused on that central element. You can also change this ball and socket joint as much as you like. So we can have our camera at various angles. We can have it pointing upwards if we really want to. So you can sort of like slide across, kind of do that, you know, classic medical drama, looking at the ceiling type thing. And there is a little spirit level on the top, so you can make sure that everything is nice and level. Now, the cool thing about this is you can actually put the slider on top of a tripod if you wanted, so you get a bit more maneuverability with it, and you can actually move it and change it around anywhere you like. But realistically, a slider is a great piece of kit if you want a subtle bit of movement. Really good for things like advertising campaigns. You want to do a slow reveal of a product or a slow reveal of a subject or something behind a corner, behind a door, the other side of a door frame. These kind of things is where you'd find those shots most useful. So that is your slider, really straightforward. There's multiple sizes you can get. This one is the small one. It's approximately about 40, 50, half a meter-ish in length, but we go up to ones that are just over a meter in length. So you can get quite a long slide going. So it's about the length of like 2 tables, as it were. But this is a really nice and easy piece of kit to use, and also quite small and portable too. Now, from the slider, as I mentioned earlier, there is of course the all-faithful tripod. Now, your tripod should basically be your default piece of equipment when you're working here at the college, but a tripod has many uses. You can of course use it for photography, you can use it for filming, you can use it for absolutely anything at all. Here's one I made earlier. So here is your sort of standard-ish tripod that we've got. So you've got 3 controls at the top, you've got 2 dials here to obviously extend the legs out, and of course you've got with this particular tripod, you can actually bend it at 90 degrees as well. So on the top here, we have our standard tripod plate. So to get this off, you simply press this little black lever here, twist this bit back, and then your tripod plate will pop out. What you'll notice here is there are 2 arrows on the bottom of the tripod plate, one that points lens that way and one that points lens that way. I always like to call this the short edge and call this one the long edge. Make sure your lens is by where the short edge is. What this will mean is that it's much easier to align your tripod and camera to the front so it's pointing at the right target, so it's not pointing at you and you have to spin everything around and all these handles get in the way of your shot. So make sure you always align your lens with that. And to reattach it, you simply hook the short edge in like so, and you just push, and then that clips it in there nice and tight. That tripod plate isn't going anywhere. And then you have these three controls. So some of our tripods don't have this level of control, some of them do. So our first one is basically allows us to spin on this axis like so. So we can basically create a Dutch tilt essentially, or film at 90 degrees if you want to do some portrait video. So you can set it to that level here. This one on the side allows you to tilt forwards and backwards. And again, you've got your degrees of angle there. And then this one over here allows you to basically pan around till your heart's content. So you got pan, you got tilt, and you got turn, if you want to think about it that way. Now, this particular tripod is quite unique because it actually allows you to bend it out to 90 degrees from where it lives. So to do that, over here, you'll notice you've got your extra little dial here. So if we loosen this, what this will allow is the entire middle of our tripod, if I just open the legs a little bit, allows the tripod to extend to quite a large height. Now, what we can do here, there's a button on the end of this dial here that if we push, allows us to bend it out to 90 degrees. Then we push the button again, and then that allows us to bend our tripod like so. So we've got a nice little kind of T shape here. And then you can use this to lock it back into place, and then you can essentially film on top of tabletops and do something very similar to this aerial cam above me here, which is face down on a certain area. So quite good for animations, quite good for small stop motion things, quite handy in general if you want to have like a top-down shot. And basically put it back to how it was. You basically pull it back, press a little button on the end, make sure it actually goes in, twist it around, and then push it back in, and it's back to where it was. Really nice and straightforward. And just make sure you tighten that bit up there. Now with the legs, this particular tripod, because it's one of the slightly bigger ones, will go up to about 6 foot tall. Some of the other ones will probably be about 5'5" in height, maybe a little bit taller, somewhere in that kind of realm. But you've got 2 stages of legs here to obviously extend your tripod out as far as you need to. Now, some of them will only have 1, some of them will have 3, some of them will have 2. Some of them you might also notice will have a slightly different plate, but otherwise all the plates work in the exact same way. There will be a clip of some sort that you ping off, plate comes off, make sure you attach this to your camera first, then clip it back in like so. But like I said, you can put a slider on top of a tripod, just make sure you tighten your slider onto the screw mount on the bottom. Otherwise, we do have some other alternatives like this, which have a really nice long pan handle and give you a much smoother pan. If you're doing lots of filming with lots of pans and movement, would highly recommend that. If you're doing more statics and stills, this tripod is perfect for you. Same if you're doing some photography as well. So if we move on from our tripod, we can then play around with something like this. This is what's called an X-grip. So what an X-grip is essentially a form of camera stabilisation that you can use quite low down at low angles. So the main use of this is to basically enhance skateboard videos. That's why these were invented, so people could hold on to the handle here, attach a camera at the bottom and film people skateboarding. So to attach a camera to something like this, very straightforward. You've got your little dial here at the bottom, which obviously controls your screw mount here. So line it up with where you want your camera to face. So let's say I just want it facing forward, like so. And then we just tighten this screw into that hole if we can find it. There we go. And then, hey presto, once that's nice and tight and not moving anywhere, there we go. There's our camera done. Really nice, easy setup. And what this allows you to do is basically pan with your hand like so. Now, like I said, mainly invented for skateboarders by skateboarders because it allowed people to put really big fisheye lenses on your camera and then basically shoot anything you like going low down. So you can obviously watch people do kick flips, tricks, various sort of street skating styles. Very much familiarized with that. Also really good if you want to just get pictures of people's feet moving, walking, anything low angle, anything low to the ground, anything where you can also kind of be like looking up as well. You can easily do with an X-grip. It's really nice and easy, really straightforward to use. Like I said, it literally comes like this. Some of the X-grips have an extra attachment here, so you can attach a light or you can attach a microphone to it, because obviously with your handle in the way, you can't really use the mount on the top there. But again, a really nice, simple, straightforward piece of kit to use. Really good if you're in a pinch. You can use it at sort of like chest height, but it isn't as stable as it would be lower down. Now, obviously this is a very collapsed version of a shoulder mount, but what a shoulder mount does is allows you to mount a camera to yourself, essentially, and then operate it as follows. So when you get a shoulder mount that will look something very similar to this, all these blue dials can be loosened and moved to wherever you need them to be. So some of them have a tripod plate, very similar in style to the camera slider one, where you loosen the dial, off pops the plate. This particular one has the plate built into the system, so it makes it a little bit easier. So it attaches like the X-Grip does. So you simply got your little dial here. So how the shoulder mount works is, as you loosen these blue dials, you can customize and change where everything sits. So for instance, for me, I like having it into my right shoulder. Some of you may prefer your left. That is totally up to you. So we can loosen these blue dials here. As you can see, I'm basically reassembling our shoulder mount, because depending who uses it, will dictate where someone has left it in the past. So as you're loosening and changing all these dials, you can basically customize your shoulder mount to however and wherever you want. So as we can see here, here's one I made earlier. You can simply then mount it straight into your shoulder like that. You can adjust all the settings and dials to your heart's content. Make sure you tighten the blue dials back up again to where you like. I personally like the handles facing a bit forward, so it kind of sits my arms a bit better. And then obviously tighten all these dials up until you are happy. And then as you can see, the camera is nice and level with my head here. So an example of that, if I attach this just on here like so. Ta-da. There we go. So here's my camera now attached to my shoulder mount. Because I've picked one with a flippy out screen, I can obviously concentrate, look at the screen while obviously filming what is in front of me. Now, shoulder mounts are great at moving in straight lines. That is their main focus. That's the main thing they're the best at. If you are doing lots of motion where you're moving around or snaking around a scene or anything similar to that, I'd probably recommend using a different piece of stabilisation kit, which I'm about to go over. But if you're just moving in straight lines, either backwards, forwards, or walking alongside someone, shoulder mounts are perfect and will do the job absolutely fine. It's only when you're adding a bit more motion and a bit more movement do you have to consider using something else. That something else is what's called a FigRig. A FigRig is one of these, often referred to as students as the steering wheel, because it looks like a steering wheel. Now, what the FigRig is great at is giving you stabilization, moving your arms away from keeping them really close to the camera, so you obviously get a bit more camera wobble, spreads the load out, and allows you to have a bit more stability and a bit more motion while you're at it. So, FigRigs are basically a big metal tube. That's essentially what they are, and your camera mounts in the middle here. So with your plate here, what you basically do is on this side, you'll notice there is a little dial. We simply loosen that up. What you notice is your plate now starts to wobble. What you then need to do on this side, there is a gold button. You press and hold it, and then your tripod plate slides out. It will only slide out one way, so you can't get it wrong. Once your tripod plate has slid out, then you can obviously attach it to the bottom of your camera. Now, I would recommend with tripod plates is to make sure that you bring a coin or something similar, or even like, you know, the metal bit at the bottom of your lanyard, to actually tighten them up a little bit more. What you'll also notice on the bottom of this plate is there is a kind of front end, which is this part, which kind of narrows in, and then that lines up here where it says the word insert, just on the bottom here. And all you do is you simply slide your camera straight in. You'll hear a click, and then you just simply tighten up with this dial at the back, and then that is your camera attached to a FigRig like so. Now, like I said, this gives you a lot more motion, a lot more twist. It's basically controlled by your arms is what creates the motion. Yes, you can tilt it left and right as well. You can look up and down with it, and of course going side to side. What this does let you do is it gives you significantly more movement and motion when you're actually moving your camera around. But obviously is limited by how stable you are as a human being. If you are doing a lot of running and a lot of motion, then it will be quite bumpy. You'll have to use something like a warp stabilizer in Premiere Pro or After Effects to kind of cancel it out. But on the whole, they are fairly steady. These are our kind of examples of steady cams we've got. Unfortunately, we don't have a full proper steady cam rig because they are just far too expensive. But you can, if you're looking to get into this kind of world, you can look up things like gimbals and various other things which are fairly inexpensive if you're looking to buy one for yourself. So that was a look at all of the stabilisation stuff we have available that is really quite nice, small and handheld. We'll also have videos on our track and our jib as well. Those will be coming up very soon. Otherwise, I've been James. This has been your ultimate guide to everything, and we'll see you next time.